How you guys doing this evening?
We're doing great. How are you?
Wonderful. I've been teaching PowerShell all day long. Just got home, got a martini in my hand, and ready to go.
Yeah, we're without our martinis, unfortunately.
Oh man, I mean the best part about talking about PowerShell is when you're doing it over martinis. So.
So very cool. I gave the guys here a brief introduction of you. Just go recap that. Jason is an MVP in Windows PowerShell. I think was that your first time being awarded this year, Jason?
Yeah, it was the very first time getting awarded. I was truly honored, and I was very surprised because it was something that I wasn't even really paying attention to. I was speaking at a conference with Don Jones, and we were standing out at this conference hall at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and I get this email, and I looked at it, and I almost deleted it because I thought it was just an advertisement. And I saw the first line, and I showed it to Don, and I'm like, really? Is this a... So yeah, it's the first time I've gotten the MVP. I'm certainly very honored to receive it. So it's great.
Awesome. So we also mentioned that you have a book, Learn IIS in a Month of Lunches as well. I just picked that up, and I'm just beginning to go through it. And
that's
so
awesome.
Yeah, so far it's very good.
Thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it. So I wrote that. Oh my God, it seems like I wrote it a year ago, but I guess I got it finally done about 4 months ago, and the publisher's been putting it together. The book is IIS in a Month of Lunches is really for admins that don't know anything about IIS. I mean, it's not for developers a developer can read it, but I mean, it's really, kind of going through, how to administrate IIS and that kind of stuff. And I wanted to throw more PowerShell in there. I got quite a bit in there, but they have kind of a binding limitation. So I actually had to remove some stuff that I'm going to find a different way to publish. Probably publish it as a free ebook or something on PowerShell.org. And it's been a lot of fun doing that book. At the same time, me and Mike Robbins have been writing a book for Sapien. We've updated and rewritten the TFM for Sapien, and it's going to release in January, all on PowerShell 4. It's got DSC in it, all kinds of cool stuff. So
awesome. So we'll look forward to that for sure.
So you guys are, I mean, I have to tell you guys are kind of an intimidating user group in the sense that, you guys are pretty well known for being pretty deep and all that kind of stuff. And so I had picked this topic that I thought would be really cool. But you guys may already know it, but I'm hoping that maybe there's something I can show you that'll be helpful or useful, or at least somebody maybe there will be useful, because it's something that I get constantly. And it's amazing how many people I work with that actually use PowerShell that don't even know this. And it's really how the pipeline works. And so if you're interested, I'd kind of like to go through the couple of ways of solving problems and understanding how the pipeline is actually passing objects and how it knows what it's connecting to and how to troubleshoot it when it's broke.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds great. I mean, even if there are some advanced folks, it's always good to go over and have a refresh of reinforce everything. So I'm game.
Well, that's really cool. And for the advanced folks out there, please feel free to jump in and add stuff and things like that. And it's kind of funny because I am teaching PowerShell this week. I just got done teaching a brand new fresh batch of admins that have never worked with PowerShell before about this. And they're actually starting to understand, which is really cool because it can solve a lot of problems. I'm going to see if I can manage to figure this out enough to share my desktop here. And you guys let me know if this is working. I'm going to minimize. Let's see here. And let me know if you can see my PowerShell screen, my console.
Yeah, it seems to be coming up Seems to be coming up now.
Okay, good. Is
Yep, there
the
it
font
is.
size pretty good?
I think the font size is good. How's everybody? Yep, looks good.
Awesome, awesome. So let me do a little stuff here. And so I have to tell you, there's a little bit of a story that kind of goes with this. I was at, this was probably 5-6 years ago. I was sitting down, I think it was at Tech Ed, and you guys know how at a conference like Tech Ed, they have the meeting rooms are separated by a football field full of vendors. And you would go from, and no matter what you do, every time you would look at your schedule, you were running across that football field. I mean, I think they designed it that way. And one of the things I've noticed is that at all these conferences, they want you to go through the vendor area, but they don't want you to have any chairs to sit in the vendor area. So everybody lines up against the wall and sits on the ground. Well, one day I was sitting on the ground, and an odd thing happened. I was trying to figure out some exchange commandlets in a pipeline. I couldn't get it to work. And I swore to God, I just said, you know what, I guess maybe they're broke or whatever, they're not working. And it just so happens that Don Jones was walking by going to a session, and he plopped down next to me. He goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm trying to, this doesn't work. I'll send the exchange team something, a note or something." And he looked at what I was doing, and he said, "Do you actually know how the pipeline works?" And I'm kind of like, "Well, I thought I did." And he says, "Well, let me show you something." So I'm going to take you through basically the same thing that he took me through. And all of a sudden, by the time I was done, and I'll show you exactly where it was, I had figured out how to fix my problem. The moral of the story is that when you're trying to get two commandlets to work together across the pipeline and to try to get a result, the end of the story is that you can get it to work. If you're not getting it to work, it's because you haven't figured out how the pipeline is working and what's going wrong. And so it's actually 4 separate processes. Now, I want to tell you guys, I have this text file over here. And this text file that I have has the exact demo that I'm going to go through. I wrote it out for you. So I'll email it to whoever, all that kind of stuff, Lito or whatever, and so that you can have it. And you can try it out for yourself. I wrote everything out for you. So let me just start off with something kind of cool here. One of my favorite things in the world is get service, stop service. Whoops, it would help if I could type better. Now, if I strike enter, any idea what's going to happen?
It probably won't be presenting much longer, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So I have to be really careful not to. Matter of fact, I'm going to back up one character just in case. A lot of you already know that this is actually going to work, but my question is why does it work and how does it work? Because when I put commandlets together in a pipeline, if it doesn't work, I want to be able to figure them out. Well, it's an interesting kind of thing. So let me kind of start off here with, I'm going to kind of denote the first part of the pipeline as this is the sending commandlet. This is the dude sending stuff. And he's sending objects across the pipeline, and we send them one at a time. So get service, it grabs all of my service controller objects, all of these objects, and it sends them one at a time across the pipeline to the receiving commandlet. And what I want to point out with this is that, and what a lot of folks don't realize is they think about it and they say, well, how is, that receiving commandlet, it just must, grab the object and magically know what to do with it. Actually, it's not the commandlet that's catching it. And I try to use a sports analogy, and I know nothing about sports, so the analogy might suck, but here's how I think of this. I think of this as the receiving commandlet has catcher's mitts. And there's this pitcher, the sending commandlet, sending these objects one ball at a time as fast as he can across this pipeline. And the catcher's mitts over here, and I can't spell catcher's mitts, so I'm not even going to try. The catcher's mitts are actually on the parameters. It's the parameters that have the ability to catch the object. And that's what we're looking for. And we're trying to figure out what parameters have the capability of actually catching an object. There may not be a parameter that can catch an object. That's one of the challenges. So what we're going to do here is we're going to diagnose the process that this goes through. And here's how it works. There's 2 things that we will do across the pipeline. One is we will check by value. And I'm going to explain what that means in a second. But the most important part is that if by value fails, we have one other fail-safe, and that's by property name. And by property name is how a lot of commandlets actually successfully do this. But as you're going to see, we're going to run into some issues with property name, and I'm going to show you how to fix it. You've probably seen it 1,000 times, but now you'll see why we're doing this to fix this particular issue. I do want to point out, so there's going to be two different ways to fix by property name to get it to work. But as a last resort, even if by value and by property name don't work, there is the last fourth result that I want to show you that we can solve this problem with a parenthetical. Now, guys, first of all, I got to get you used to the fact that, no, I don't know how to spell, so don't worry about it. So there's 4 parts to this that works. Let me start off with the first one. So getService is going to send an object to stopService. The first thing I need to know is what kind of object this is, and we can determine that if we do getService and pipe it to getMember. GetMember tells us the type of object that's being sent across the pipeline. And this is really important because when we send stuff, if it can hook up by value, the value we're looking for is the object type. And the object type in this case, well, it's a service object. It's technically a service controller object. So in my mind, I kind of go, well, I wonder if the receiving commandlet has a parameter that can receive a service controller object by value. So how we determine that is to run help on the receiving commandlet, which in this case is stopService. And you need to use the full help for this because all of the information about the pipeline and what the parameters can deal with are in the full help. And let me just kind of show you, take you through what I actually look at. So, and let's just look at this parameter, what if. Does it accept pipeline input? Once again, it's the parameters that have the ability to grab this. And so obviously this one says false. So no, it doesn't take pipeline input. So I go up the list, confirm. Well, it doesn't take pipeline input. And go up the list again, pass through. No, it doesn't take pipeline input. Dash name, does it take? Well, it sure does. And so the first way we're going to try is by value. So does it take it by value? Yeah, it can take it by value. And so I would be tempted to write this down and say, maybe this is how he's taking it, but look at dash name, look at the argument here, and look at the value type that it takes. The value type it takes is a string. Well, that's not the value type I'm sending. The value type I'm sending is a service controller value. So by value, and it kind of would have been nice if they said by value type here, but by value, he takes a string, I'm sending a service controller, that's actually not going to work. So I'll keep moving up the list. Input object. Accept pipeline input? Yep, accepts it by value. Well, what value type does it accept? Well, it accepts service controller. So bingo, I found it. And even if you look at here, and I call these bankies, but if you look at here, he takes multiple objects. Well, that's good because I'm going to send in multiple objects. And he takes service controller. So here's how getService pipe stopService is working. It's working by sending the object to the input object parameter. And if we have this match, then we have a hookup, then it is going to work. So even without running it, I can sit here and go, okay, I know this is going to work because I'm sending a service controller, it's receiving it on a service controller, it's got a catcher's mitt here. I know it's going to work. So I don't even need to run it and break my machine and all that kind of stuff. So that one's good. And kind of the moral of the story to that one is on getService, stopService, and you'll notice this, not that I can type, is that when the nouns match, a lot of times they will hook up by value. Not always, but when the nouns match, you have a good shot at them hooking up by value as you're looking at them. By value is the easiest and best way to hook up, and it makes life the easiest. But when the nouns don't match, the idea is that probably by value isn't going to work. And let me give you an example. I want you guys to think about this for a second. Take a look at this. What do you think is going to happen now? I mean, I've got get service. It's going to give me a bunch of services, and I'm piping it to stop process. And my question would be, and I can't see you guys, so like don't stick your hands up or anything, but I mean, how many of you, just think about it for a second, how many of you think that this is not going to work? How many of you think that it is going to work? This is where it starts to become fun, because if I'm working with two commandlets where the nouns are different, I'm not sure if it's going to work, and if I am having a problem, I want to be able to diagnose it. So let's break this one up. We're going to follow the exact same process. So once again, I'm going to take get service, and I want to find out what kind of service object I have. I always want to check by value first, just in case. So we already know that it's a service controller object, but I always like to do it again anyways. Yep, there it is. It's service controller. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to follow what the commandlet would do, and that's check by value. So I'm going to do get help on stop process and see if there's anything by value that works. Well, let's try here. Get help, stop process, whoops, full. So I'll go through the list again, and I don't want to bore you with all of the ones that aren't apparently obvious, but here we go. We'll kind of scroll through this. And again, you know, I'm looking at stop process. So what if dash confirm, they don't take pipeline input, pass through, they don't have any catchers met, no pipeline input. Dash name, does it take pipeline? Yeah, it's by property. I don't care about that right now. I'm looking for by value. Well, input object, well, it takes pipeline input by value. Awesome. What type of object does it take? Well, it takes a process object. So it's not matching. I'm sending a service controller, and it wants a value type of process. Since they're not spelled exactly the same, this is not going to be the hookup. And this is where by value will fail. So the commandlet will then switch. By value has failed. I'm now going to start to check for parameters that support by property name. And oddly enough, just right below it, dash name supports by property name. Well, I kind of like to write that down so I can keep track of this, because this is where it gets a little bit tricky and confusing. By property name, so I got dash name. Let's see if I have anything else. I do have something else up here. Dash ID will accept it by property name. And here's what by property name really means. It means that the object that you're sending to me, does it contain a property that is spelled exactly like the parameter name? So is it spelled like ID, or is it spelled exactly like name? Well, how we can figure this out is, once again, you know, I'm using get service as the sending commandlet. We can pipe that to GEM. We can take a look real quick, and I'm looking for a property that is spelled exactly like the parameter ID or like name. So I'm looking through here. There's nothing so far. Let me scroll up here. Oops, looky. So I've got this alias property, and it doesn't matter that it's an alias property. It matters that it has the word property in it. It's spelled exactly like the parameter. So here's what's going to happen. By property name of the object, it's going to attach to that parameter that supports by property name. That's where they got the idea of the by property name stuff. So the hookup is going to be that we're going to send a bunch of service names to stop process dash name parameter. Well, here, just before because I'm going to run this, I'm going to show you this is going to, so let's take a look real quick at get help, stop process. You guys know this, and I'm just going to do detailed real quick. Let's go look at the definition of the parameter dash name, because I'm going to send it a bunch of service names. Well, if you look at it, it says, well, stop process wants the names of processes. Well, you guys know processes aren't the same as services. So this is going to hook up. This is going to work, but I'm going to fill dash name with a bunch of service names. Well, obviously that's not going to work. So let's try it. Get service. Now, usually I have guys in the background going, do it, do it. Oops, not that one. That one does. Just hit enter. Just hit enter. Now, what we're going to do is we'll do what if. Now, you see a whole bunch of red, but here's the idea, is I want to see if, and if you look at the red, I know it's really hard to read on the screen. It says, you know, I can't find a process with the name of, you know, man service, you know, WMAN or WWAN service. Well, yeah, that's because I'm sending it service names. But take a look up here. Let's go through. I usually get at least one. Let's see here. See if we have any white on the what if. I could have sworn I saw something fly by. Let me scroll up here. Oh, come on. I know there's something up here. Let me get to it. Oh. Look. Performing operations stop process on target. This is a service name. So here's what happened. And you guys probably know this. Sometimes when a service starts up, it creates a process that uses the same name as the service. So in this case, it actually would have worked. It would have killed that process off. So it's kind of interesting is that something that looks like it could never possibly work actually does work to a certain extent. I mean, you know that you're not all of your services are going to create these process kind of things. Well, when I started playing with that, and I kind of went, wow, the nouns are different, and I'm seeing how things are hooking up by property name. I wonder what else I could get to work. And I actually had a real business problem at this point, and I'm going to show the business problem I have. So let's do this. I'm going to use get AD computer because I just like AD computer. And you guys know this will give me a list of Active Directory computers. And I'm just going to do filter star. So in my little lab environment here, I have a couple of computers, nothing major. I've got the property name is DC. I've got a DC, I've got S1 and S2, and I've got a client machine. Well, that's cool. That's cool. Here's what my business problem is, and this is just a sample of it. But in reality, my problem was this: I needed to hit all of my Exchange servers and look for services that were set to automatic that were not running, because that would be a problem with Exchange, a huge problem with, if you guys work with Exchange, that's a huge problem. So I wanted to look at all the Exchange machines, find the Exchange services that were set to automatic that weren't running, and then try to start those services. So I started playing with the commandlet get AD computer, because I was going to have it filter at this particular customer site for all their Exchange servers, and they all began with EXCH, so I could make a filter for them, but I'll just do this. And I just wanted to do a test, like get service, and I wanted to look for a service, and I'm going to play with bits because it doesn't matter if I break that one. And I ran this, and I'll just tell you right up front, it didn't work. I didn't understand why it didn't work. So I went back to this process of breaking it down and trying to understand the pipeline. And this is the third process of trying to figure this out. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to take get AD filter star, and first of all, I want to check for by value to see if there's any chance that the receiving commandlet will take it by value. So I need to know what the object type is first. I'll do get member. Oh, well, that kind of makes sense. It's an AD computer object. Okay, I get it. That's cool. Get service is probably not going to take this by value, but just for grins, let's go ahead and take a look at it, because I don't like to shortcut the process, just in case. Full. And yes, I'm going to give you an example of where shortcutting the process was a bad idea. So I'll go through this, and once again, thank God Get Service has 11 examples, because we couldn't live without all 11 of them. That was a joke, by the way. You're allowed to laugh. So I'll go through the list, and I'll start to look for by value first. So let me kind of shortcut this process a little bit, because you guys can see that, well, dash name by value, what kind of value type does it want? It wants a string. Well, that's not going to work because I'm passing AD computer. The only other thing that goes by value that has a catcher's mitt is the parameter input object, and it wants a service controller object, which completely makes sense. but that's not what I'm giving it. I'm giving it an AD computer object, so there's no match. There's no hookup there. So ByValue fails. So the commandlet, once again, is going to flip to checking by property name. So we've got a couple of properties here. Dash name. Well, it takes by property name. Okay, that's interesting. So I'm going to jot that down or keep that in a mental note that I might be able to get it to dash name. But while I'm here, I'm going to look at the definition of it. Well, this is the name of services. Well, that's not actually what I wanted to do. I wanted to get a list of computer names and give the get service commandlet that list of computer names, because I already have a service in here. It's bits. Well, let's see here. Let's scroll up to computer name, because that's really what I'm targeting. And I just so happens that I'm really lucky in this case, because computer name does accept by property name. The name of the parameter is computer name. So I need you to pause for a second and remember how by property name works. By property name means that the object that this guy is receiving has a property called whatever matches this parameter name. So I'm really hoping he has a property called computer name. Well, let's go back and look. Get AD computer, filter star, pipe to GM. What's he got here? Uh-oh. This is where I have my problem. Property name. Let me check this. What's actually in property name? Select name. Well, that's the computer names, but here's my problem. The property is called name. What it's going to hook up to for get service is the parameter for service names. So this actually is going to, unless you guys have named your computers after Windows services, this is not going to work well for me. I'm going to send this as a bunch of service names. In other words, the hookup isn't going the direction I want. You know what I really want? I really wish this was computer name. So I'll tell you what, why don't we all send an email to the Active Directory team and tell them that for the last 13 years they've been wrong and change this to computer name. I think they'll do it. I really think they will. If we get enough email going, kind of like the Steve Ballmer thing, I think they'll, that was a joke because I don't hear anybody laughing. So, so here's the thing. I really wish this said computer name, and then I could get it to work. I could get it to match. Well, that's where the fun comes in. With select object, and I'm sure some of you have done this, I'm going to put in the property name so you can see this and then comma. I can create my own custom property. And just to kind of show you this, I'm just going to make something up. Now, a lot of people, when I strike enter this, a lot of people get very frustrated. They say that, look, this object you're creating, it doesn't have a property called JSON. So I should get an error message. That's not what I get. And they get very upset. They're like, well, it should have said that property didn't exist. And it's like, no, this is a feature. Because notice what it's letting me do. It's letting me create my own property. In fact, if I pipe this to get member, it actually let me create my own property. That's a good thing. The only challenge is filling that with the data I want. And this is where we come up to, and just to let you know, by the way, if some of you haven't worked with this particular syntax before, it's in the examples of the help file for select object. It's also in the examples for a couple of the other places you can use it, like format table and format list. So I'm going to kind of use this weird syntax. This is how we can create a custom column, or also what's called a calculated property. It's a kind of a hash table, nothing like the hash table I had in college. And what we do is we say name equals, and the name of the column that I want to call it. Well, the property that I'd like it to be called is computer name. That's what I really want. And then a semicolon, and then the word expression. Now, I got to be honest with you guys. Nobody actually types name equals and expression equals and then put in an expression. What everybody does is they abbreviate this. So I'm going to abbreviate it too, down to E and down to N. Now, if I was putting this in a script, yeah, I would actually write everything out very clearly. But inside of these curly braces, Now I need to be able to fill that expression. Well, the current object coming across the pipeline has a property on it called name. So I need to grab that current object coming across the pipeline. The traditional, and I say traditional because I don't like to use the word old, the old syntax for this is $_. This symbol of these two characters means grab hold of the current object coming across the pipeline. And then I want to see a property of that object or part of that object, .name. Now, just to let you know, starting in PowerShell v3, and you're now starting to see this on the inner tubes with blogs and stuff, starting with PowerShell v3 and in v4, this could be PS item. Means the same thing. They thought this would be more understandable. I'm not so sure it's more understandable, but I still use the, I'll say it, the old way. $_. So keep in mind this means the current object across the pipeline, I want to grab that property name. Watch what happens when I strike enter. This is actually kind of cool. So I get a new property called computer name, and it's filled with the original object's name property, which I left it on the screen over here so you can see that it matches. Well, this is really cool because let's get rid of name. We don't need name anymore. Let's look at our problem again. When I pipe this to get service, and I'm going to do -name bits, now I'm sending it by property name, something that matches the parameter name on get service computer name. So this is kind of awesome. Suddenly, dun, 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 dun. It works. And I know some of you are going, well, how do we know? Because you don't have any computer. Here, let's select name and machine name. I think, if I remember correctly, machine name is a property on there. Yeah, there we go. So you can see I grabbed the bit service from the different computers. It's the ability to change in flight, create your own properties, and match them up by property name. That really, for me, when I was learning PowerShell, this changed my life right here. This syntax right here, when it came out with V2, really changed everything about me being able to get commandlets to work together, because now I understood what it needed, and I could alter it in flight. And this same concept is what we use when we script anyways. We just create a hash table and make all this stuff, and it works perfect. This is awesome. This wasn't, however, the problem I was having when I was sitting on the ground trying to figure out an exchange issue. As a matter of fact, I was really upset about this exchange issue. So let me show you kind of the idea of the problem I was having. This syntax changed my life, but it was this syntax where I was having the biggest problem. So I'm going to do the whole concept of get AD computer again, because I want to pass a bunch of computer names, and I'd like to use get WMI object, and I want to grab a class. Let's say I want information about free space on a disk. So I'll take logical disk, and I could filter it down to a C drive or something, and then I would select free space after the pipeline or something like that. Well, I had an exchange command that was very similar. I was grabbing Active Directory computers, and I wanted it to go get me some information, and I'm sitting there pounding my brains, and I could not get it to work. And I swear to God that I thought that that commandlet was just broke. Just didn't work. This should work. It should work just fine. I had already done, it should work, and it didn't. And so when Don was showing me where the error in my ways were, I suddenly became very embarrassed, because I realized that I had spent probably, I don't remember if I had spent like 6 or 7 hours on this, but over the course of like 4 or 5 days, I was trying to figure this out. And I learned something very, very special at this moment. So we're going to go through the entire process again. First thing I want to know is what kind of object am I sending across the pipeline? Because I want to check for ByValue just in case. And yes, I'm going to show you, you get in trouble if you don't check. Yep, it's AD computer object. So let's see if getWMI object accepts AD computer object by value. It probably doesn't. We'll probably go to by property name, but let's take a look. So get help, getWMI object, dash full, and let's go through the list here and take a look. I'm going to look for by value first, but I'll take whatever I can get. So if there's a catcher's mitt on any of these, because I can always, use a custom column or a calculated property to figure this out. Let's see here. Throttle limit. Well, I don't care about throttle limit. Recurse doesn't. Query doesn't. I don't care about these. I want computer name, but I just like to look at the list. Property doesn't. Namespace doesn't. Locale doesn't. List doesn't. Impersonation, well, that sounds like fun on a Friday night, but it's not taking any pipeline input. Filter doesn't. Enable all privileges, well, it doesn't. Direct read, it doesn't. Credential doesn't. Computer name, oh, that's the one I want. Oh, man, it doesn't. Does anything in this stupid thing take pipeline? Oh, wow. Nothing takes pipeline input. This is the problem I was having. I was trying to pipe a list of computer names to a commandlet that doesn't accept any pipeline input. And you actually run across this a lot. A lot of the older commandlets, like the Active Directory ones, like the IIS ones, the ones that were written 6 years ago when they really the developers really didn't understand what a pipeline was and how important that was to us. A lot of the older commandlets, they don't accept pipeline input, or the thing that you want doesn't accept a pipeline input. God, I wish computer name accepted a pipeline input, but it doesn't. So at this point, a lot of guys would throw up their hands like I was doing and go, well, crap, it doesn't work. They need to fix this, yada, yada, yada. That's not actually true. There's an easy way to fix this. And this is what I refer to as the last resort. And I mean literally the last resort, because you can always get something to work using the last resort, but it's also not necessarily the best way. So you don't want to start with this. You want to end with this, if at all possible. And so let's see here. Let me try a concept. I know PowerShell knows how to do math. I also know, and believe me, I went to public school, so this is kind of hard on my brain. I know PowerShell also knows how to do this thing called, whoops, well, that's not going to work, called the order of operands, which, basically means whatever in the parentheses, do that first. Well, I have this idea in my head. How about if we do this? Get WMI object class, and I'm just going to do BIOS right now, just something quick and easy. We'll do computer name. And you know what I'd really like to type here? I'd really like to fill computer names argument space with get AD computer filter star. Now this is not going to work because the commandlet says, well, here's a parameter. I'm willing to accept an argument. Well, that's what it takes as an argument. Then it looks at this and goes, I have no idea what you're doing. That doesn't even make sense. I'm going to strike enter just so you can see it's going to. Oh, crap, did I break it? There you go. It has no idea what's going on right now. It's totally confused. So really what the concept is to put this dude into parentheses. And when I first started playing with this, I'm like, oh, hey, that's kind of cool. Except it doesn't work because there's a problem here. Get AD computer filter star doesn't give me just computer names. It gives me all of this stuff. Oh, I get it. Well, what I really want is just the property name. That's where the computer names are. So I know how to do that. I can do that. I can go get AD computer, filter star, pipe, select object, property. And by the way, guys, even when I'm in the console, I use a lot of aliases, but I actually don't use that many aliases, and this is one of the reasons why. This is where I learned the hard way not to use positional parameters and not to use aliases. I always put in dash property. I swear to God, I always put in dash property because this looks like it's going to work. That's exactly what I want. That's perfect. I'll copy this, Oh God, I hate copying in the console. And then I'll bring this guy back up. Oh, where is he? Oh, wait a minute. And what I'll do is I'll put him into parentheses, if I can figure out how to paste again in the console. I'm so used to using the ISC nowadays. This is going to work perfect. It gets me the computer names. That's going to be, what do you mean that didn't work? That should have worked. It should have worked. No, it shouldn't have. Because here, watch. This is where getMember is your best friend. I'm going to pipe this to getMember. Look at the kind of object I'm sending. I got AD computer. Well, take a look at something. I'm going to do get help, and I'm not going to do the full or detailed help on this. I'm just going to do the short help, because we can see this in the syntax. Look at the syntax for get WMI object, specifically computer name. So let's just pick one that has computer name. Computer name, the value type of the object that it wants, it's got to be a string. Now, it'll take multiple ones, and I want to give it multiple ones, but it's got to be a string. What I'm giving it right now is AD computer. Well, that's not going to work. Because I am so anal about I am so anal about always typing in my parameters when I give them arguments, I thought to myself and went, well, you know what? This is a problem. I really want to convert this to a string. I don't want that object definition of AD computer. So what I did in real life is I went, well, surely they thought of this at the PowerShell team. So let me look at select object. And I did this by reading the full help. I actually had to read this, but let me just show you. And you guys probably, some of you probably already know. We have this parameter called expand property. And when I looked at the parameter definitions, I looked at what it said, and it said that it would kind of extract the true values that would come out of it. So if it was a string, it would extract a string. If it was an integer, it would extract an integer. And I went, wait a minute. Are you telling me that the only thing I needed to do to get this problem to work is to change this to expand? And the answer is, that's actually all I needed to do to get it to work. So as a line of last resort, you can use a parenthetical, but you may have to make adjustments inside your parenthetical, and you can do that by testing it with getMember to make sure that you're giving it the value type at once. I know a lot of guys, they like to like import CSVs and stuff like that. Well, you're still going to have to select out that column from that CSV. You're still going to have to expand it. So besides the calculated property syntax, this became my next favorite syntax. This whole parenthetical thing became my favorite syntax. And that is the last and final resort. So the answer is you can always get it to work. But I want to leave you with, well, not leave you, but I want to give you one word of caution. I keep saying this because every time I pipe something, even if it's something I already know that works, if I haven't looked at it before, I always am curious, how does it actually work? And I just want to point one thing out. I always do the process in its entirety. I always do it from the very beginning, checking for ByValue, then ByPropertyName, to see what's going to happen. And let me show you why. I'm going to, get service we already know. If we pipe to GM, gives us a service controller object. And this thing has a different noun, so it probably doesn't work by value. Well, I always check for this reason. Well, let's see. Get help on select object dash full. And I'm just going to go right to it here. I'll scroll up to it, and I'm sure the screen will catch up here in a second here. So let me just scroll to it. And when the screen catches up, here's what I want you to notice. Pipeline input, true by value. I'm sending a service controller object. Input object takes by value, but look, that doesn't say service controller. So it shouldn't work. But this is something special. As a matter of fact, this is something very special. PS object, PowerShell object. Basically, this means I'll take anything. And now I usually describe this as it's kind of like vanilla ice cream. You can always add your own flavors into it. It's not really a great analogy. I had a student actually said, actually, it's like Mikey from the old Life commercials. Mikey will now eat anything. And that's the way I think of PS Object. It takes anything. And think about it. Even in your own experience, you can send it process objects, service objects, AD computer objects, AD user objects. It doesn't care. A lot of your base commandlets like select and sort and format and convert to and export to, they all take PS objects and they take it by value. So I always, always, always like to check just to make sure. I don't know. What do you think? Is that kind of cool?
Helps me out.
And so here's what I want to do. And Leo, if you want, I can email this to you, whatever. I want you guys to have this exact same demo. So if you want, you can work through it and see. Here's a great example. Get service, stop service, sending, receiving, what kind of object is sent across the pipeline. I show you how to determine it, show you the answers. So, and this is something you actually want to type out and you want to do for yourself because all four processes are part of this. Now, some of you more advanced guys probably know that you can actually see this occurring in real time. We have something called trace command, and I'm not going to do too much with trace command at the moment, but trace command will allow us to, and if you want to dig into trace command, there's more to this, but I'm going to type in parameter binding. I'm just going to hit param star because I want it to trace the parameter binding, and that's what's happening when you're pipelining something. I could give it an expression, and I could even give it something like get service, stop process, and I need to tell you, I'm going to have it display this out to the PowerShell host. This does not produce pretty results, and it takes you a little bit to get used to reading this, but trace command shows you the exact same process I did. It's the commandlet as it's going through making these decisions. And so I don't really use trace command that often. I understand the pipeline, and I do exactly what I just showed you when I'm troubleshooting something. It's quick, it's easy, especially if you practice it. It's fast, it makes sense. However, if you really want to dig in, especially if you're writing your own commandlets and working with the pipeline, oh my God, look at all this. It's a ton of results, but if you were to analyze this, it's going to show you the same thing. The first thing we do is we test it by value, and if that fails, we try it by property name, and we find all of the properties that support by property name, and we see if there's a property from an object that will match and hook up, and if it doesn't, then it fails, but if it does, then it works. It's actually some pretty cool stuff. So, stop. I'm blind looking at all that. So trace command can be a lot of fun to start to dig into and to dive into. But quite honestly, I stick with the easy parts of the process. It's all about using two things to figure it out. Get member, which, pipe to GM, and using get help. And you can do everything you need to do to figure out and troubleshoot and always get your commandlets to work the way that you want them to work. So with that, that's what I have for you. So what do you think?
Awesome, Jason. That I think was very, very well received. Great job.
Oh, thank you guys. So yeah, make sure that you have this kind of stuff, and make sure, and I know you guys know about it, make sure you stop out at PowerShell.org if you run into any questions or something, and post to the forums, that kind of thing. We really encourage, you guys are one of the great user groups that are so active, and we're so grateful. We really encourage as much involvement as we can, and we want to help all of the user groups as much as we can. And one of the things that we want everybody, PowerShell.org is a nonprofit. Nobody gets paid. It's all volunteer work. And we do as much as we can, like I personally do as much as I can to help anybody, even admins, especially admins that are just trying to learn and figure out PowerShell. So I encourage you to also try to help somebody that needs to figure this out, help answer questions, help anybody that you can. And I'm not trying to be salesy here. I'm just letting you guys know in case, it's fallen off. Remember, come April, there's going to be a PowerShell Summit. There's going to be one in North America. And later in the year, we're going to have one in Europe. Now, personally, oh, great, I can't spell Europe. Personally, the North American one is usually the easiest one for most of us to get to. It's going to be up in Bellevue. We're going to have Jeffrey Snover, a bunch of guys from the PowerShell team, a bunch of, not just MVPs, we're going to have a bunch of gurus, stuff like that, all presenting, talking about development. They're going to be talking about VMware and Oracle and managing SQL and IIS and all kinds of stuff. So if you get a chance, take a look. The North American one is in April. The cost of the ticket is literally our cost to be able to feed you and buy coffee. So I swear to God, we try to make it as cheap as humanly possible. But I do want to point something out because we are working on this, and we can use your help if you really want. If you really want to have some fun and you want to help us and you have friends that are in Europe, maybe you might want to go to Europe. We're going to try to see if we can get a PowerShell Summit with Microsoft, the PowerShell team support to go off in Europe. And we're going to, there's no way I'm going to be able to spell this. We're going to do it in yeah, this is about as good as it's going to get. We're going to do it in Amsterdam. Yeah, really, yeah, thanks. So I think right now we're shooting for dates around September 29th of 2014. So if you have friends over there, get them kind of excited. We're trying to do the best we can to get one going off in Europe. But just to let you know, if you want, I love talking to people. I love communicating with people. So don't laugh. This is my Twitter address. See, this when I got on Twitter 6 years ago, it was literally to follow what was going on with hashtag PowerShell, right? And this kid already had my name. And so I had created a bogus account and sent him a tweet, and I said, I want my name back. He sent me a picture. I don't even think it's possible I could do to myself what he sent me in this picture. So in anger, I created the Jason Helmick. So, if you want to connect, Twitter is the easiest, but also I'm going to give you my email address, and I do respond to email, so I'm more than happy to talk to anybody at any time about anything. Did I type that right? I have a hard time typing. I think I got it right. So yeah, guys, please, go out to PowerShell.org, that kind of stuff, and let us know what we can do to help support you, your user group, your efforts, all that kind of stuff, because it really matters with the work that the community is doing to help other admins and help devs and stuff like that learn about PowerShell. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you guys taking the time and having me to what's known as, I swear to God, I'm not lying, you guys are known as one of the hottest, most technical user groups out there. So congratulations, guys.
Oh, awesome. That's flattering to hear. Thank you, Jason. Thank you so much for taking the time and giving us an excellent, awesome presentation. Tickets for the summit for North America are still available, correct?
Yeah, they're still available. And last year, if you guys tried to go to the summit last year, we screwed up. It was our first year trying this to see if we could get it to work. We put all of the tickets that were available online at once, and everybody bought them. And it was like August, and the summit was the following April. And then we had people yelling at us going, how do we get tickets? So what we've done is just about every month we're doling them out every month, and we keep adding more tickets available all the way through February, I think, is when our cutoff time is, because we sold out in like 2 weeks last year, and we do sell out real fast. So if you want to go, plan for it, try to grab a ticket, because we are going to be selling out. But this year we also increased the size a little bit from the 90 people that we had last year. We're taking it up to about 180, 190. We still want to have that small feel where, you can sit down with Lee Holmes, or you can sit down with Bruce Payette or Snover or one of your favorite people to talk to and actually sit down and talk to them. So we're not going to go over that like 200 mark, but we will try to make tickets available as long as we can out to February, but don't wait till the last minute. So, and I have to tell you, I've been a very, very bad CFO of PowerShell.org. I'm the guy responsible for putting up the agenda. It was supposed to be up 3 days ago, and the agenda is not up yet. I'm going to get it up this weekend, I promise. So if you go out to PowerShell.org and take a look, you can see you'll be able to see the agenda of all of the speakers and the content. And I have to tell you, last year we had 2 tracks. It was a developer track with all this development stuff, and we had an administrative track. This year we have 3 tracks. We still have a developer track. Adam Driscoll and, Bruce Payette and all these great guys are going to do this developer track stuff. But we have 2 tracks for admins now. We have the regular PowerShell deep dive stuff, like you might see in the PowerShell deep dive book, deep diving on PowerShell web access. And I know we've got Stephen doing a ton of stuff on deep diving into DSC. I mean, what an amazing technology in V4. But we also have a domain-specific track. I've managed to contact some of my friends that are Microsoft PFEs that are coming in to do stuff like a deep dive into managing Exchange 2013, into managing SharePoint, managing Oracle, managing SQL. So it's really becoming the thing that, whatever product you're working on, we're trying to be able to bring in people that can help you get the PowerShell aspects from learning that. So when the agenda goes up this weekend, I promise, take a look at it and see if there's not something that interests you along the way.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm registered myself, so I will look forward to seeing you there, and we'll see if we can get some other folks on board before February.
Here's the strange thing. It sounds weird, but I want to see you too. But I have to actually buy my ticket. And I haven't done that yet, so I'm actually I swear to God, I'm writing a note down right now that says, go out and buy your ticket tonight.
Oh, yeah, dude, you got to get on that.
Yeah, believe it or not, Don has to buy a ticket. I have to buy a ticket. The only person that doesn't have to buy a ticket is, Jeffrey Snover, of course, doesn't have to buy a ticket. And any of the Microsoft team members, but we all got to buy tickets, and I forgot to buy mine, so thanks for reminding me.
Yep. Well, very, very cool, and thank you so much, Jason, for spending your evening with us, and we'll let you get back to your martini. And thanks again. It was a great presentation.
Well, thank you guys very much. And again, this is the second time I've been able to join this, you guys in Philly, and it's truly, truly, truly an honor. You guys have represented yourselves really well. There's a lot of jealous user groups, so I wanted to say thank you very much for having me. You guys have a great evening.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Cheers.
Scalpers. So.
Were you recording that on? I was.
Yeah, John was.
Yes, hope it'll be on there.
So we'll post that up on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
That's pretty much our meeting for this month. There is something for everyone who's left. I figured it would probably be pretty cool if we had like homework, right? Would that be cool? What do you think about this? Humor me. So if we come up with some fun little exercise, you have the whole month until next meeting. Everybody works on it individually, and then we can get together at the following meeting and kind of see how everybody approached it and how everybody solved it. Does that sound cool? Yeah, homework's a bad word, right? Homework won't be.
It's like a scripting game year round.
Yeah, I figure like it's not something like you don't have to do it. It's not a commitment. You don't have to sign up for anything. But if you want to take personal time and have like a little brain teaser, kind of like a PowerShell version of a crossword puzzle or something like that. So here's what I was thinking. So I listened to a podcast and they were talking about this company that just recently went out of business, and one of the features that their product had was, you have a folder full of pictures basically, and it would take a look in that folder of pictures, and it would basically it would eliminate the current year and look for any pictures that were taken. It would examine the EXIF data and look for any pictures that were taken on that date. And if it found a match of a picture, it would just send you an email and say, hey, on this day in last year, here's some pictures we took. So I thought that would be kind of a neat challenge to see how everybody would approach doing that.
So just to clarify, are we giving it a date and then it looks for any matching photo with the date?
So the way I imagine it would work would be, and you can approach it any way you want, but the way I envision it is you have Outlook or some mail client right on your desktop, and you have a folder full of images, and your script would just go through that folder and say, hey, what's the current date, today's date, and then it would look for any photos in that folder that match the same date, but not of the current year. And if it found any, put them into an email message and mail yourself.
You know, formalize vital creation date.
What's that?
You know, formalize this, put it on the blog.
Yeah, we can totally do that. If I just wanted to throw it out there and see if anybody would be interested in,
You're looking at the creation date.
So each image has metadata about it, right? So you'd have to figure out how would I through PowerShell or through Windows or COM or any of these other methods look at the EXIF metadata on the image and get that date stamp. Yeah. Yeah. So if I had a folder full of images that maybe I went on vacation last year on this day, I get an email that morning and it says, hey, here's what you were doing on that day in history, kind of thing.
Yeah, so we'll just formalize that. We'll put it on the blog post.
Okay.
And just keep an eye on our blog and our Twitter feed. We'll kind of have all that information together.
Yeah, and we don't have to
Yeah, if you want to do it, you can do it. We can do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and do it because I think it sounds cool and it'll be something fun to work on that's not work related, and then you learn some PowerShell along the way. So, and then we can commiserate and see what worked and what didn't work. Cool. Yeah. So maybe. Yeah. So maybe an email. If you want to do something, if you want to go, step further or have another creative, do a slideshow or something like that would be totally awesome. Yeah. Go wild.
And I just thought with Jason's thing, I had that problem multiple times with Exchange too, because a lot of times I would do a get 80 user spam and try to type it to get mailbox, and it would constantly bomb out. And it's one of those things where I had to actually put it in a hash table and kind of say, because get mailbox goes for an identity as opposed to a names. And obviously there's no identity property in Active Directory, so it'll always bomb out. So from there, what I would do is just do the same thing Jason went over, which is use the hash table and convert it over. And that way I can type anything I wanted from, get AD user, select name, name equals the
filter it.
Yeah, filter it so it's be name and then say the equals name and just pull equals identity, but pull the name for each object and then type it over to get cat mailbox, get mailbox, and it will work fine from there. Yeah. It was one of those things where that I spent hours why does this work?
Yeah, I constantly get tripped up with the pipeline, especially when I do where object or select object, and the way he presented that, I actually learned a few things along the way that helped me. I think I'm going to avoid certain problems when I get messed up. I'll be a little faster to.
Yeah, especially now that you went over just how to find exactly what goes perfect for whenever you run those issues. First, you check that. Yeah. It's an awesome way to go about it. Okay, instead of trying to tag that for just see what that
even a little more in depth in some of the explanations about what exactly is going on, what it's looking for at the other end. So the catcher's mitt thing.
Yeah, I thought it was a good analogy there.
That really helped.
Yeah. One other thing I'll mention is that we are kind of still in the early stages of planning for a Saturday, an all-day event. If anybody here is interested, in presenting, or even if it's not a full hour talk, if you want to do a half hour, if you want to team up with somebody and do quick 5, 10, 15-minute talk, let John or I know, and we're kind of compiling that information and see what we can come up with to put things together for like a Saturday event. We're also considering, trying to get some support from the New York PowerShell user group and see if we can maybe combine forces and see what'll happen there. Other than that, did we have some giveaways to do?
Sure.
Anybody have anything that they wanted to share?
I don't have a script. It's there is a program called there's a program that is a third-party app that goes through and scans the environment, what software you have and what version, so the purchasing department can compare it against what we have for licenses. Except that's all well and good, except for Quest Toad for Oracle. The Quest Toad for Oracle doesn't change anything about it if it's standard or professional. The only thing that's different is the content of the license file. The content of the license file is all that's differentiated. And where that lives is in the user profile under app data. So I just thought it was interesting that I took a list, and for each member of that list, I parsed through the users' directories recursively, looking for this file, and then I took the first line. So I think it's I just did a get content dash first one. So to get the first line. So that's how I have my machines, and then the first line for every one of these files, which is a QS off 11.key. And then from there, I was able to get all the user keys in their environment.
Yeah, the recount thing on. So did you actually do recount or did you count?
I did. All I had to do was just first one.
Okay.
So the first line I knew had the license key that I needed.